How come video games aren't fucking slow? I kind of miss it when video games were slow. I've been playing through the Legend of Zelda decompilation project lately, the old Dusk Light, and that game has an incredibly slow opening. Also, I have to shout out the perfection of that compilation project, by the way. I can't believe how seamless they've made the experience of a native PC port be of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, so congratulations, Dusk Light devs. Thank you. It's very good. If there's anything that I remember about that game a long time ago when it was coming out, is that it's got a real slow opening. Has you do a bunch of really mundane tasks, stuff that you probably don't really want to be doing in the opening of a Zelda game. But I look back at now with a lot of nostalgia, and it's got me missing the way that we used to pace out games from the yesteryear. There's a lot of stuff going on in the beginning of it that kind of feels kind of fucking pointless. Like you're herding sheep and you're fishing, and then you got to throw a hawk at a monkey, and then you got to go get a sword and swing some shit in front of some kids. And you know what? I miss all of that stuff dearly. I have a good time with Twilight Princess in the very beginning. It's fun kind of learning the town and meeting everyone and going through the motions of whatever it is that Link's life is supposed to be. Because by the end of it, the highs of Twilight Princess are pretty dang high. It's clearly setting up an entire epic in a pace that feels pretty grand in scale by the time everything comes to a close. But nowadays, games just kind of slap you on the ass and then that's it. You're just playing the video game. Maybe you watch like 1 or 2 moments of story beats, and then within 5 minutes, you are playing the game. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but to be completely honest, I do think that's probably the better way to make a video game at the end of the day. Everything is so fast now. It's always like spawn, die, get to the mission, get the thing, next gameplay element, do this, do that. When you get to those moments when you're slaughtering demons and stabbing a man through the heart in the middle of a lightning storm, that kind of hits a lot harder now. Games don't really take their time to build on that. They just kind of throw you straight in. There is something particular to be said about the way that Twilight Princess does that, because when they're doing it, they're making you do a bunch of really boring and kind of straightforward chores. When you start going off on your own, it does tell an interesting story about how does Link go from just being a regular old farm boy to the chosen one that now has to save the entire kingdom. I think that's interesting. I think that's something that was kind of lost and definitely adds more interesting flavors to the way that the world feels. The way that games change their feel over time has always been something that's been pretty interesting to me. Like the initial acts of a video game feel so fundamentally different than the final or the middle act of some story that you're watching, where I almost get nostalgia for the thing I was only doing like a few hours ago, because the way that everything has transitioned away from those initial moments and what I understand happens to those characters by the end, it just makes it all hit so hard. You know, I don't really get those same feels of like eras are changing when everything is moving so quickly. And that feeling of like, oh, there was an era, this was a chapter, these were moments, these characters were like this, and now they're like that, and the world is fundamentally different. You don't really get that stuff if like within the first 5 minutes, I'm throwing fucking barrels in somebody's face, and then by the end of the game, I'm still throwing those same barrels in their face. It is the different approach of like, what do you do with arcade style gameplay versus what do you do with like immersive RPG style gameplay? And RPGs always do a really good job at feeling very different than themselves by the end, because look, the stakes in the world has changed. If you're just getting me into the core gameplay, maybe we are not changing the world so much. And I don't know, that core gameplay has to stay the same somehow. The core gameplay is something that does stay about the same for the most part, but that feeling that I was here in this character's time in their life, and then their fucking girlfriend died or their whatever, and then next thing you know, Cloud is like fighting a man above a meteor that's ripped himself to pieces, and it's just like that feel of like the world and the stakes have fundamentally changed doesn't really come about so much these days. And it's just kind of like wake up in a cave, throw stick at man, go back into another cave, pick up 5 more sticks, throw those at people, kill major boss with stick. Great video game. we're missing something here. And I don't know if it's exactly pace-wise, slow openings. I attribute the slow opening to the way that games used to make their worlds start to feel different as the game and the story progressed. That's kind of why I miss slow openings. I miss that progression of I was here and now I'm doing something fucking insane. Or I was there and now the scales and the stakes have been raised like astronomically. And I don't feel like games are really doing that very much. And I feel like it says a whole lot more about the confidence of your story if you're willing to set things up a long time in advance and then have payoffs that blow out everything by the time they come around. Being a huge Star Wars fan, I have to bring up Andor. Andor being the giant Star Wars slow burn spy thriller that it is. When that show first came out, it took 3 episodes to kind of get the audience on board with what it was doing. And I like that. There was some trust there. It was like, hey, if you give me time, I'm going to set some stuff up for you that will have some major payoffs by the time it's over. And so that's what they did. They set all kinds of things up that happened in season 1, albeit like maybe for Andor's sister, who we never hear about again. All of those other things that are set up at the beginning of that show have gigantic payoffs by the time we make it to the end of the season, and even greater payoffs by the time we make it to the end of season 2. That slowness, that time, that confidence that I am going to build something and you're going to be here for that ride. I like that. I think that's really fun. And I don't think people are doing stuff like that anymore. They just want me to keep pressing buttons as fast as possible. And you know what? I do enjoy that gameplay. Like, I don't want to knock on it because it's different sides of the taste. It's different sides of coins. Video game. Video game's supposed to have fun. It's supposed to do cool things. I like doing that shit. It's a good time. Get lots of dopamine from pressing buttons. So much dopamine from pressing buttons. But I like it when the dopamine's a slow drip. I also really enjoy it where if I sit here for a while and I pay attention, I get really rewarded for my time. And just like a fucking bullshit job that pays you $8 an hour, eventually those $8, baby, that's going to be $64. And you know what $64 is? That's a new video game. So fuck you, pay me. I just miss that stuff. I like the slow burn. I like the huge payoffs. I like it when there's massive moments that are called back to questions and stuff that I was wondering about when I was only playing the game for about 5 minutes. I feel like with those nice slow burn pace, that does really help get you into spots that matter. Anyways, what do you guys think of slow burn video games? What do you think of slow burn stuff in general? Do you like the slow opening of Twilight Princess? I think the slow opening for Twilight Princess is fun, but on your first playthrough, it can be pretty enjoyable, but on subsequent playthroughs, especially if you are like a speedrunner, probably not. The thing you want to be doing is herding sheep and throwing hawks at a monkey again. You probably just want to play the game. So I get it. I get why people dislike it, but I do think that it does add something to it. But anyways, what do y'all think of this? If you had fun here today, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. I'll post again sometime next week. See you later.